It's recording. All right. Good evening, everybody, to the shir of Likutey Moharan, the weekly shir of Likutey Moharan. I just want to. This computer was just, it fell apart to just put it together again. So I apologize. We're talking about Torah Chaf. Torah Chaf. Rabbeinu starts with enumerating 9 exalted and precious rectifications that are brought in Zohar Pashas Truma. And they are dealing with the 9 different parts of the beard. It starts with the hair that's coming from the ears, towards the mouth. And it talks about the mustache, it talks about, the hair on the cheeks above the hair, it talks about the beard that is hanging down, it's talking about the hair that are behind the beard, the little small hairs that are on the neck and that are the opposite side of the back of the neck, and the lips, and so forth and so on. We also mentioned that these 9 tikkunim, they're mentioned in a few places in Sefer HaZohar. They are talking about the level of rachamim, of tikkunim, that exists in a level, in a spiritual realm, which is called Zer Anpin, as opposed to the 13 tikkunim shel rachamim, which are also 13 rectifications of the beard, which belongs in Atika Kadisha, and Arich Anpin. But Hashem should help us, be connected, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should send us word of Biurim and Chidushim, that B'zchus everybody here, and B'ezrat Hashem should have Diburim Chaim Kaesh, so we'll be able to let Hashem explain what's going on, and B, get some Chidushim out of there, B'ezrat Hashem. The idea of Chidushim that is shaykh to somebody like me is not so much insights into the Torah itself, but more the Chidush, as Rav Nosson says, that is Chadshus in Avodas Hashem, that you wake up in Avodas Hashem anew. This is also Chidush Torah. This is a Machadish B'tuvo B'chol Yom Ma'asav Reishis. If you get a new chayas, a new resolve to get into Yiddishkeit, this is also called Chidushim. So without Hashem should have Rachmanis on all of us. So Rabbeinu starts. He says that these 9 tikkunim are you can look at them as a regular court system, meaning a court system has a certain leeway in which it can exercise Rachmanis, but it's within the law. In other words, the court cannot decide that somebody who is guilty is not guilty. The court can't do that. But what the court can do is that the court can take somebody who is guilty and say, the mitigating circumstances, it's his first offense, whatever it is that you can see in there, that is this is the extent of the leeway, the rope that the regular court system, court can handle. The 13 midas of Rachamim, they are like a presidential pardon. It doesn't matter whether the person is guilty, is not guilty, whatever it is. That's it. Give you a pardon because the Caesar decides like that. So this is what it says. And Kadosh Baruch Hu says, "Chanot sherachon, yichant sherachem," that I will pardon that which I will pardon, and I'll have favor on whatever it is I decide to have favor, and the law has nothing to do with that. That is 13 Mishnah. Here we're talking about the 9 Midas Rachamim. They were used by Moshe Rabbeinu after the Chet HaMeraglim. And this is very significant in this particular setting, as it were, because the whole issue that Rabbeinu raises here takes place after Chet HaMeraglim. Not necessarily just chronically, but chronologically, but when a situation that after Miriam passes away, after the Meraglim come back, it's very, very, very much part of the term. And that particular time, when Hakadosh Baruch Hu gets very upset with Am Yisrael and decides that Am Yisrael, he says to Moshe Rabbeinu, let me be, and I will Chas v'Chalila finish off Sanem Shel Yisrael. So Moshe Rabbeinu uses the 9 Midas Rachamim, not the 13. That's the lower one. And it's very, very significant. And that is also, you will see that this has to do with the stalkos of Miriam, that Moshe Rabbeinu comes and Kadosh Baruch Hu tells him that there's no water to drink because Miriam passed away. The Be'er is no longer there. So Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu to take the staff and go and in front of the people and speak to the rock before them. And Moshe Rabbeinu does not fully understand to the required depth what a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants from him. Remember, 40 years before, Moshe Rabbeinu took his staff and he hit the rock. So Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu, take the staff, v'dibarte l'sela le'neim. So Moshe Rabbeinu understood, you take the staff and you hit the rock and you speak to the people about the inyanim of the rock. Dibata ela sela means ala sela, about the sela. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu did. Hamina sela zenatila chemaim. From this rock, you want me to get water out for you? But that's not what Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted. Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted him to speak to the rock. So that was the mistake that Moshe Rabbeinu did. And so from here also we learn, just before we actually go into the synopsis of the Torah, the summary, we need to understand that this is the choice by the tzaddikim. It's the madrega of tzaddikim is not whether they're going to do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants or not. They're not holding by a madrega. Something, I don't feel like davening today. Or I don't feel like whatever it is. This is not the madrega of tzaddikim shleimim, Frat Moshe Rabbeinu kamuvan. We're talking about is when there is a gray area, it's not clear. And when the tzaddik makes a mistake, means that he kaviyachol did not investigate the matter properly. So according to his madrega, that's called a pgam. That's called a mistake. In our madrega, it's obviously this is a tremendous mitzvah. But madrega Moshe Rabbeinu, the fact that you didn't fathom that this is where the madrega is, like the madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu, this is called a pgam. This is called a mistake. Okay, what was going on there? Rabbeinu starts by saying that there is a neshama that is the portal to all biurei Torah. That neshama is called Miriam. And in the schos of this particular neshama, it's called Miriam because a lot of bitterness and a lot of yisurim have to pass over this particular neshama. And all the Mevorah Torah, all the commentators of the Torah, all those who explain the Torah, get the Bi'ur Torah from that particular neshama. So this is what it's called Miriam. Now, when the diburim of this neshama are as hot as burning coal, and we said that hot diburim, fire hot diburim, are the simon of diburim from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When Yirmiyah tells the people that they choose to believe the false prophets and not to believe him, so Yirmiyah is incredulous and he's saying, Halokot varika esh. All my speech is like fire. Can't you see? Can you tell the difference? Here we're talking about diburim that are as hot as fire. This is the telltale sign that these are getlecha. These are himmeldik diburim. These are diburim mishamayim. So this is when this neshama passes away, that causes a blockage. Nobody knows what's happening. The Mevorah Torah, the commentators of the Torah don't even realize why their commentaries dried up. They don't realize that. But the people who hear from them, the Torah, they feel, because the Torah is the life force that is intravenously feeding everybody. And the minute that they're not getting their feed, there's machlokes in the tzaddikim. So right after Miriam, that neshama passes away, and the people start arguing about on Moshe and Aaron. Why? Because the Be'er was mistalik, the Bi'ura Torah was mistalik. So subliminally, the mazel feels we are not getting our sustenance of Torah. So it says that what is actually needed to be done is the tzaddik, when he comes to be mechadish chidush Torah, he has two tools in his hand. One tool is the zchus, the merit of his good deeds. This is called a staff, a mate oiz, because all the mitzvahs and all the masim tovim that the tzaddik does is a tool and a weapon and a weapon in his hands. The other one is tefillah berachamim. Now the thing is that all the dibura Torah have to come from above, from the sphere of the bina, which is called leva elyon, the supernal heart. And that heart is called Tzur Levavi, the rock of my heart. So when we're talking about the rock in the story of what went on with the rock, with the water, with hitting the rock and all that, we're talking about the Leva Elyon. And what's merumas here is the Leva Elyon. Now, there is a certain usage for the staff of strength. In other words, the merit of the tzaddik, and there is a usage for tefillah. The Rabbeinu explains that the staff of strength needs to be used only to subdue the inherent wickedness that is embedded by the people who come to hear the drasha. The tzaddik needs to use his chusim, his mateois, to defeat them and bring down their inherent wickedness. As we will notice, this is a two-stage progression. And each time you always have to subdue a certain wickedness that prevents you from getting to where you need to get. So what you're supposed to do, what the tzaddik is supposed to do, he's supposed to supplicate and beg HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give him a diburim that are as hot as coals, which will be the kalim, the vessel for the Chidush Torah. And once he does that, the Torah flows down with it. But when the tzaddik comes to ask for the Chidush Torah, what he has to do first, he has to connect himself to all the people that are there, to all the neshamas, because commensurately to how many people are there, and of course how much the tzaddik was able to beat down the inherent wickedness which is amongst them. This is as much kedusha that it comes up with the tefillah of the tzaddik, commensurately with the amount of kedusha that's being added above. Tnu oiz le'elokim, give strength to Hashem. This is as much Torah that comes down. Not only as much Torah that comes down, but as we'll find out, the power of the Torah that comes down is that much greater. So when everything is the way it should be, the tzaddik comes with his staff of strength. He defeats and brings down the wickedness of the people. He's mekasher himself to everybody that is there, and he's davidibata el asel name, and you dive into HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the Leva Elyon before them. In other words, while they're there. Then it becomes tfilas rabbim. It becomes not a tfilas yochid. In other words, the tzaddik is not supposed to come and daven. He says, give me chidush Torah because I'm a tzaddik, or because I learned, or because I'm important, whatever it is. This is called something that is being taken by force. And Rabbeinu explains, anybody who pushes the hour is being pushed back by the hour. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron Cohen had to pass away. So if the tzaddik does everything properly, he uses the mata ois of his good deeds to bring down everybody. I mean, the badness, the wickedness that is inherent in everyone. He connects himself to everyone, and he pleads before HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give him dibur chamim ke'esh. He gets a bounty, an influx of diburim chamim ke'esh of chidush Torah, and these dibur Torah, these chidush Torah, with them afterwards, they do something truly miraculous. The Torah that is produced in such an oifen, tzaddik came, subdued down the wickedness of everyone, connected with everyone, begged the Kodesh Baruch Hu properly, with total anova, with total, bitul and self, annulment, as it were, before Kodesh Baruch Hu. Just everybody, look at all of us. The Torah that comes down, that happens in any time the Torah comes down, but specifically then, from every single letter of the words of the Torah that the tzaddik is mechadash, that creates angels. These are spiritual forces that, and they are, and they have a job to do. Because once you get the Torah, you are supposed to go to a bechina of Eretz Yisrael. There's a next stage. Just sharing the Torah is not enough. You need to go, you need to take it to the next level. The next level is getting to Eretz Yisrael. When you get into Eretz Yisrael, this is when you are getting into a mode of Yiddishkeit, where you are growing and you are climbing and you are ascending from step to step to step. There are 10 miles to Eretz Yisrael. There are 10 levels of Malachim. And the Malachim are the ones that enable you to get into Eretz Yisrael. In other words, to get yourself to claim a stake on the land of Eretz Yisrael. There's a little problem along the way. Between you and Eretz Yisrael, there are Motzia Dibas Haaretz. There are the slanderers. The slanderers stand between you and Eretz Yisrael. Because coming to Israel is a mitzvah no matter what. But the idea of coming to Eretz Yisrael, the reason to come to Eretz Yisrael is to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can come to the slanderers, what they do is either they tell you that Eretz Yisrael Bechal belongs to the Palestinians, it's Bechal not yours. Or they say when you come to Eretz Yisrael, you should build yourself a villa in Caesarea or whatever it is, and enjoy the fruit of the land. In other words, just enjoy the Gashmias. That's not the Eretz Yisrael that we are looking for. The slanderers, they come between us and Eretz Yisrael. Rabbeinu says that the malachim that are created by the letters of the Torah, the Chidush Torah of the Tzaddik, they go to Edom, which is Esav, who is the custodian of the sword and bloodshed. Edom is Mazel Madim, and they get the power of the sword from him, and they do away with the slanderers that block you away from Eretz Yisrael. Now, we are talking about here Moshe Rabbeinu making a mistake. He made a mistake, lefi his madrega, that instead of connecting himself to the tefillah, to all the people that are there, Moshe lifts his hands. He lifts his hand and he speaks to the people, says, from this rock we're going to get water from you. Rabbeinu explains lifting his hand. Hand is a euphemism for tefillah. We see it in Recheves HaMolek that Vayiyadov, Emuna ad Be'er Shemesh, that Moshe Rabbeinu's hands were spread in supplication until the sun came down. Lifting the hands is a euphemism for tefillah. Nosson Lieberman said many years ago, I heard him say, why is there many levels of Yadayim in the of tefillah? But why is Defka, what is, in Ruchnius, Yadayim, the hands, they are a euphemism for tefillah. I said, because it's the opposite of Gashmias. In Gashmias, the hands is Koyach V'Otzim Yadi. The hands is what I can do. Just check me out. I mean, we are the champions, right? In Ruchnius is exactly the opposite. You lift your hands up. It says, I can't do it, Hashem, you do. This is Vayera Moshe Siyada. Rabbeinu says, this is the failure of Moshe Rabbeinu to connect himself to the people. He lifts his tefillah alone. It's a tefillah siyachid. Tefillah siyachid is unique in the sense that it's not always received. Tfilas Rabim and Kel Kabir Lo Yimas. That the tefillah of Kabir, of a lot of people, Lo Yimas HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepts that. Even though they're not, not everybody is Spitz Panavish, nevertheless, it's okay. Everybody together, go ahead. But Moshe Rabbeinu, when we said that it's a big plea, because Rebbe Akiva said to his Talmidim, where did we find a woman that has given birth to 600,000 people, in one birth? And when everybody was, with a dropped jaw, Rebbe Akiva says, that's the mother of Moshe Rabbeinu. Because Moshe Rabbeinu is Shakul Keneged Shishim Riboy. Moshe Rabbeinu is equal to all 600,000 people. So Lichura, it seems, it would stand to reason that Moshe Rabbeinu davening alone should be equal to Moshe Rabbeinu connecting himself to everybody. What's the difference? We found many, many times before, when the people did mistakes and Moshe Rabbeinu davened for them and saved everybody. It comes to teach us over here that first of all, the importance of the neshama of Miriam, that is the source. It's a hidden source for Bu'ur Torah. If that neshama is in the world, the flow of Torah is in the world, the tzaddik can hit the rock and it's okay. Because the Diburim Chamim is already there. It teaches us also something else. It teaches us also that there is a duality between, it's a two-way street, the connection of the tzaddik to the people and people to the tzaddik. When Am Yisrael, after Chet HaEgel, Moshe Rabbeinu takes, his tent in oil mud and takes it outside of the machne. Because Baruch Hu says, what are you doing? I'm upset with them, and you're going to be upset with them. So who's going to take care of them? There's klum nosati lecha gdula ela bishvilam. What do you think I gave you the greatness for? It's all for their sake. There's a certain give and take that has to happen, between the tzaddik and the people. That especially once the neshama is not there, that neshama of Miriam, the portal has closed. It becomes doubly important for the tzaddik to connect himself to all the people in his davening. Rabbeinu says it in Sichas Haran. He says about Elisha. Sometimes the Bible calls him Elisha, and sometimes the Bible calls him Isha Elokim, the man of God. So Rabbeinu said, in those times, they had prophetic academies. People learned how to enter prophetic states. And there were the students in the academy of the prophet was called Bnei Neviim, the children of Neviim. Or you can call it Neviim cubs, as it were. That each one of them was practicing the nevuah, and they all got to the level where they could get into prophetic state, and many of them, in fact, most of them, there were, I think the Rambam, the Ramban say that in the Midbar, everybody, was going after prophetic state, and most people got it. But later on, talking about the prophecy academy, then most of the Talmidim, they got prophecies. Their prophecies were not written in the Bible because they were they were more like limited time, limited range kind of prophecies. It was not the prophecies that has to do with the destiny of Am Yisrael. So Rabbeinu says in Sichas Haran that when the Bnei Neviim were together with Elisha, he's called Isha Elokim. When they were not with him, it's called Elisha Stam. So the connection, the symbiotic connection of the tzaddik and the people is crucial, especially during time where, as we said, the portal is closed. Now, when there is a certain fault, the tzaddik, like Moshe Rabbeinu, did not connect himself properly. He took the Torah from above, as it were, by force, the force of his merit, the force of his masim tovim, but nevertheless is by force. That causes a diminishing of the power, of the ability of the malachim to get the koyach from Edom to slaughter and do away with the slanderers. And Rabbeinu says that there are different levels. There are 4 different levels. There is, of course, when the malachim are strong, And these are malachim that are being created from the Dibura Torah. This is called Omer Hamevasros Tzvarav. Omer, this is the Torah that is Mevasa, that's creating a Tzvarav, great armies of malachim. If they're really strong, the way they're supposed to be, they do away with the slanderers and you can get into Eretz Yisrael. Now, what happens if there's a diminishing in the koach of the tefillah? The tefillah was not as perfect as it needs to be. The Divrei Torah are not as strong. The Divrei Torah are not as strong. The malachim are not as strong. The malachim are not as strong. They cannot take the power of the sword in bloodshed from Edom and punish the Rishonim. The only thing they can do is they can really scare them. They can really scare them to submission. Okay, they stay away. They're still there, but they're very frightened and they don't disturb us. If the power of the malachim is even less than that, the malachim don't even have koyach to take the sword from Esav to scare them. The only thing that can be done is that you can force these slanderers in a court of law, in the Goyish court of law, to get out of your way to Eretz Yisrael. Rabbeinu mentions over here, there's also a little special case scenario here. When the Midas of Mishpat falls down to the Sitra Achra, to the Klipos, sometimes it's necessary that the Rishonim, Rasha Machtiras a Tzaddik, that he surrounds the Tzaddik, he controls, he's overpowering the Tzaddik. Al Ken Yetze Mishpat Me'ukol. That's why, that a twisted law will get out. Al Pipshat, the pasuk says, Rasha Machtiras a Tzaddik, the wicked surrounds the tzaddik, he controls, he overpowers the tzaddik. That's why the verdict comes out twisted. Rabbeinu says there's a deeper inyan here. When the mishpat, the midah of the mishpat, the trait of mishpat falls down, if you remember, we said that all the midas belong above. Midas ahava, midas chesed. When it falls down, chas v'chesed the klipas, it becomes, a various of taivas. And then you have the midas gvura, the kedusha. When chas v'chesed falls down, then it becomes shfichos domim and anger and so forth and so on. The midas mishpat, when it falls down, it has to be extricated from the klipas. Sometimes the only way to get it out there is to let the Rasha overcome the tzaddik. Then the tzaddik has to go to the Goyish court. And in their laws, either bribe them or somehow to get them to judge in favor of the tzaddik. And what that does, that extricates the mishpat me'ukol, the mishpat that fell into the klipas. It gets it out, and it rescues the misa mishpat. That's the third level. And sometimes the malachim are even weaker. And the only thing that they can do is, you can't do away with them, you can't scare them, you can't get the Goyish court system to judge in favor of you. But the only thing you can do is just to shut them up, so at least they don't speak in front of you, so the diburim don't get into the ears of the people, of the simple people, and weaken their resolve from going to Eretz Yisrael. But it says sometimes even that they can't do. All this story, all this inyan is embedded in the Maisa that of Moshe Rabbeinu before he gets to Eretz Yisrael. We are holding by Seif Yud. If you look at Seif Yud, He says this is the end of this particular thing. Sometimes even this power they don't have. Lola nosh kanal, not to punish, as we said, and not to punish in the Goisha rules, and not to scare them, and they can only just shut them up, not to speak Sarah befanenu, not to speak slander before us, so their diburim will not get into the ears of the commonplace, the common people, and weaken them. And now Rabbeinu shows how this entire Mahalach that we explained until now is in that particular story. Moshe Rabbeinu wants to go to Eretz Yisrael, wants to go through Edom. So the whole thing is in this particular story. And this is the way it goes. Right after the Mea Meriva, right after when this episode by the rock, that Moshe hits the rock and the whole thing happens, it says, Vayishlach Moshe malochem melech Edom. Moshe is sending angels to the king of Edom. Malachem anal. These are these angels that we said before that were created from the Dibura Torah that Moshe brought. Melech Edom is because he sent the Malachim to receive the force of the sword and bloodshed from the custodian of the sword and bloodshed, which is Esav, Al-Chal B'Chatichya. So he sends him to him. Ko amar achicha Yisrael. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu says. Thus said your brother Israel, which means the Malachim are saying they were created by the said, that which your brother Israel has said, the Torah that he said. This is the thing that created the Malachim. Ko amar achicha Yisrael, hainu Malachim ha'elu nishavu me'amoras taharis Yisrael. These angels came into being from the pure saying of Israel, the letters of the Torah that he was mechadish, as we said before. Through these mamora, through these saying, through this Torah that was mechadish, this created the angels. It created a great army, tzava rav, great legions of malachim. And he says as follows: Ata yadat es hatlosha metzasanu. You know all the hardship that has found us. V'yerdu avoseinu Mitzrayim. You know everything that has happened to us, and our forefathers went down to Mitzrayim. Ata yadat adaika. Rabbeinu says that the Moshe Rabbeinu says you knew specifically because Edom has both the cause and the punishment of why we went down to Mitzrayim. Kikola and ha'onashim, all the punishments that come to Yisrael chas v'chalila al yodoi, it comes through Esav and because of Esav. Or bifrat goes Mitzrayim, especially the exile of Egypt. The whole Indian of going down to Mitzrayim happened because Adam Arishon was separated from Chava for 130 years after, the of Etzadas. So to do tshuva, Adam Arishon separated from his wife, and during that time, the various Indian of Gama Bris that happened, like the Madrega of Adam Arishon to his Madrega, and all those life forces fell down to the Klippas. And those sparks of Kedusha had to be elevated from the Klippas. That's the reason why Am Yisrael went to Mitzrayim. Parenthetically, on a side note, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago that the Medrash says something truly fascinating. it says that when Avram Avinu chased the four kings and he rescued Lot and all the people of Sodom, the king of Sodom said, you take all the property, you take all the money, you take all the property, and just give me the people. Avraham Avinu said, don't do me no favors. I'm not going to take a string from you. No string, no shoestring, nothing. He says, I don't want you to say that you are the one who made me rich. Kodesh Baruch Hu blessed me. The Medrash says that over there was a mistake. What Avraham Avinu should have said was, no. You take the property, I take the people. I want the people of Sodom to come to buy this Medrash. And because he didn't do it, Am Yisrael had to go down to Egypt for 210 years, says the Medrash. It's a fascinating thing, because when you see the reason why Lot went to Sodom, why he chose this particular, he says it was like a garden awash with water, Kegan Mitzrayim. Now that Sodom was the epitome, the prototype of Mitzrayim. It would also stand to reason, would seem from that particular medrash, this I don't give you any guarantee, that the people of Sodom were probably those particular sparks of holiness that came out of Adam HaRishon. And because they came into being from Pgam Bris, Sodomites, that's what it's all about. If Avraham Avinu would have been Mekar of them, Am Yisrael wouldn't have to go down to Mitzrayim. So the reason why Am Yisrael has to go down to Mitzrayim is because of Pgam Habris. This is what he says as follows. Ubifrat goes Mitzrayim shaya Pgam Habris kayadua. So that's why they came into Mitzrayim, to purify and to get it out. Whenever there is a fault in the covenant, that brings about Allah aleinu v'Allah aleichem, the punishment of the sword. Even though there is punishments which are sword-like today, and they come la aleinu when a person is poigim of Gam on a certain level, when he goes over a certain line, comes cherev. As it says, cherev noikemes pgam bris. The cherev noikemes, the cherev avenges the pgam of the bris. So cherev is the Eden of Edom. Cherev is, so both the pgam comes from Edom. It's Reshis Goyim Amalek. He is the Satan, he is the Mastin, he is the Pgam Bris, and he is the one who punishes. He's the one that snitches to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's the one that exerts the punishment. Vehu Edom Mimuna Lacherev Kanal. Edom is in charge, is the custodian of the sword. And that which says afterwards, Moshe Rabbeinu says, the Mitzrim inflicted great evil on us. What we did is we cried out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he sent an angel. Chazal said, Ze Moshe. Because anybody is poigim with the bris, he's poigim with his ability to discern and absorb kedusha. So we see that the bris kodesh is inexorably connected to the das. And he says, "V'akol hu me'or hadas." As Chazal says, "Akol me'or kavona." The voice is the thing that awakens the das. I'd like to pause for a minute on this particular nakuda, because our main goal in learning, and obviously to understand B'ezrat Hashem according to our level what it is Rabbeinu is saying here. But the main thing is to live with it. The Arizal says that if a person is able to learn, to daven one Shmoneh Esrei from beginning to end without any foreign thoughts, it's a siman that all his averas were nimcha, or returned. You're clean. If your Shmoneh Esrei is, with various gaps in between, that means there's some work left to do. If the Shmoneh Esrei is basically, or the tefillah is basically a lot of such gaps and some fantasies and some things that I need to do after davening, and I really need to finish davening because I need to go home to eat breakfast, or whatever it is, that means that there is a lot of work left to do. And Rabbeinu says, as we'll see later on, that the call, the voice, is an incredibly important ingredient in the level of davening. Al pi pashut, it says, "Akol me'er kavana." The sound, when you're saying it out loud, it awakens and helps you concentrate. It sort of like disturbs your mind from wandering. Because, hey, somebody's talking. I was in the middle of, just closing a deal somewhere else. Suddenly somebody's like talking to me, like reading, oh yeah, it's me davening. Akol me'eres kavana. But there's a big inyan. There's a big inyan in this inyan of call, the inyan of voice. In Torah Ches, the second chelek Likutey Moharan, in Tikotecha, Rabbeinu says that admonishment, to be effective, has to be only once the voice of the proper admonisher is achieved. It's a stupendous madrega. You can only get it after you have already caused an influx of the quadruple song, Shir Pashut Kaful Mishulash Meruba, which is the song of the future, of the Osad Lavai. Then you get the voice. It's not the words. Words obviously are very, very important. But to be effective in admonishment, meaning that you elevate the person that you admonish, you don't break him down. You need the kol hamochiach aroy. The kol me'eres kavana, because the call is produced in the throat. The throat, you have the six rings of the kona. They represents the six sfirot of Zeranpin. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yisod. The dibur is in the malchus. Hey motzosapeh, the five tools of the mouth. So there's no kol without dibur, says the Zohar, and there's no dibur without kol. You can go to shul or not in shul or whatever it is and just, mumble the words. That allows the mind to float away. Needless to say, that's not the preferred situation. the main thing that Rabbeinu told us, he wants us to daven b'koyach. And daven b'koyach means you connect your mind to the words and you put force into them. Now, the thing is that Rabbeinu says that if you connect your mind to the words that you're saying, your force will follow, because your force is looking for an outlet. Right now, it's dispersed all over the place. If you connect your mind to the words, every single word that you're saying in your davening, before you know it, you'll be screaming your head off the way you're supposed to in the davening. So we've been talking the past few weeks about this inyan of saying every single word, not necessarily, I don't know, out loud as you can. Because Rabbeinu said that to say the words, but the words, in other words, you know what you're saying, pachot yoter, you're reading the words with your eyes, but you're not enunciating the words. Rabbeinu said this is Gama Bris. Because your thought is like the influx, the shefa, and the word is the malchus. If you're not saying the word completely, it's Gama Bris, Rabbeinu says in Sichas Haran. So the first thing is say the words. Say the words. And again, I repeat it again and again and again because I cannot repeat it enough times because I myself falling backwards all the time. Before you come to daven, sit for a couple of minutes and keep it in your mind. I'm evacuating the next hour or an hour and a half, whatever it is, to daven. I don't have to go anywhere. There's nothing waiting for me on the other side. Right now, this is where I am. And you start from the beginning, from Mekabel Mitzvah Saseh Shel V'Ahavta Kamocha, and you start with Odom Olam. Anybody who says the Akedah, nothing bad happens to him that day. All the tchinas after that. Reb Nosson says that everything that comes before it, right after this, comes if you say the first parsha of Krishma. This is a soid nifla. Rabbeinu says in Torah Samechei that when you say the last word, you should still be connected to the first word of davening. This is the Shema Yisrael, that the little Shema Yisrael that you're saying before the Karbonos. This is the thing that makes the entire tefillah into one unit. Somewhere the Kazakh, every single word there of what's going on. It starts actually the night before that you're saying, something, tomorrow morning I'm really going to down like a mensch. Asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please help me. So I should be able to daven on time, to get up on time and go to daven on time and take what call a breitkeit, like a width, a little bit of breathing space for my prayer. It's not a small thing. And then you get into it. Now, okay, I've taken enough of your time. I want to thank everybody. B'ezrat Hashem, next week we will continue. We will meet, of course, in Mitzvah Hashem, Motzei Shabbat.